Magic, the whole world of magic, just not magic tricks, but there's a world of magic. These are the people who know about God, the nails and the hair. They know something complete outside. No insiders whatsoever. So in the world of outsiders, you know a few tricks. But he says, Valkane says, Misha nofal apikosus, God forbid, who fell into this kind of not believing. You got to run away from it. Because you can find God there, because God is all over. The question is, you just don't understand how it fits with God, this whole picture, this whole thing. So you can mamish learn and understand. Because wherever you are, there is something from God. Even if I believe in magic, but I'm working with things which are created, right? And there's holy sparks that they're created by God. That means I'm dealing with something which is God. And as long as I'm dealing with something which was created by God and is God, then someone can explain it to me and I'll be okay. There's something very deep. But then there was some kind of a non-believing is because I hit this empty space. I came to a place where God isn't. Mamish God isn't. And there I cannot explain to him about God because God really isn't there. But again, if God isn't there, it can't be. God has to be there. So I'm coming to this point. Now listen, just bear the depth of it. There's only one way of getting there, he says. You know how that means like this. Imagine here's an empty space, right? God is all over. But here in the middle, he emptied the space. And I want to find God. And I'm sitting here in this empty space. What I do? As long as I'm sitting in this empty space, I will not find God because God emptied the space. But then I'm questioning, how can there be an empty space? So the only thing I can tell you, brother, can you please jump over to the side where God is? I want you to think of it very, very deep. How is Abraham, the first Jew, called? Avram is called Avram Ivri. You know, Hebrew. Hebrew comes from the word Ava, means on the other side. What happened to Abraham? He jumped over to the other side. How do you jump? Mamash, I believe that God got to be there, right? Got to be there. And when I get to the other side, then I realize that the space isn't empty, right? It's only empty as long as I'm sitting in the empty space, right? But the moment I come over to the other side, then I know it isn't empty. You see, because what does it mean God isn't there? That means God is completely, you cannot understand God there, right? You cannot catch him there, right? I want you to think of it in a very deep, what does it mean God isn't there? He is there, right? God created the world in such a way that I can know God. I can look at the wall and know God created it. I can see God, right? But there's something in this world also which mamish I cannot see God, obviously, because God put something into this world before he created the world that the mamish I can't find God. When I hit this empty space, it means God really, so to speak, doesn't want me to know him there, right? God locks the doors, says, I don't want you to know me from here. What do? So the thing is, I go in from the back door, right? Like the big door's closed, right? God says, I don't want you to know me from here. Okay, it's okay, I believe enough to go from the back door. It takes a lot of believing. Because I believe enough in God to know that most probably God knows best why he doesn't want me to know him this way. Right? Tell you something very deep. This may be a stupid thing to you. It's utmost stupidity, but the best time, the only time I have to look to see movies is when I fly, Right? New York, San Francisco, Europe, you know, on the way you have a chance to see movies. And if you go on a non-stop Tel Aviv, New York, you can even see 2 movies, you know. I saw a strange movie, you know, that it's a long, long story about this. It was mamish like, it was during the war, you know, that this girl, mamish, she got lost, and mamish, like, she was on the Hungarian side, and then her husband was on this side, and all things, she got lost, and finally she met this person, and he mamish loved her a lot, and mamish, he married her and lived very peacefully. But then suddenly she realized that he married her and she had already a baby, that he doesn't have enough money to support her and the baby. And she didn't want to make it very hard on him. So every day she disappeared for 2 hours. What did she do? She had found a rich man who she was giving piano lessons. He mamish paid her a lot of money. And this rich man was blind, was a blind man. He was a very, very special man, and she had a lot of patience to teach him piano. She was a great musician. Very strange thing, you know. So anyway, her husband always wanted to know what she's doing those 2 hours, and she somehow managed that, you know, whenever she had to meet him or talk to him or something, she was not there for 2 hours. So one day he decided, I gotta mamish get to the point. You know? So it came to those 2 hours, you know, like from 4 to 6. He says, I'm gonna watch, you know, it was mamish burning up with jealousy. So he sees that 10 minutes after 4, she walks out from the house, and someone in the Cadillac comes to pick her up, you know. He's driving behind her like mad, and he sees she's walking up to the house of this rich man, you know. So he thought, I know already what she's doing there, you know. So the saddest thing happened, which is the most heartbreaking thing, or I forgot, I think it was before the war, I don't know, whatever the thing is, he left her, and I think that night the war broke out or something, and they didn't meet each other till 10 years later. But the saddest thing happened that one day after he left her, she took off with the baby, and he met this rich man because the rich man was sitting, he was a blind man, was sitting in a park, started talking to him. So then he says to the rich man says, you know, I'm so sad because my piano teacher left me. So he started talking and asked him, what was your piano teacher, you know? It was his wife, you know. Gewalt, why didn't I believe her, you know? And I thought to myself, this is very strong, this is mamish the Torah of the void, you know, God says for those 2 hours, don't watch me. You know? I don't want you to know me. Someday you'll know, right? See, if I believe, I wait, right? If I don't believe, I say, God, I won't let you get away. You gotta better tell me what you're doing those 2 hours, right? I want you to tell me exactly what are you doing in this empty space, right? Where are you? Are you there? Are you there? So I gotta believe. Now listen to this. So therefore it says, we have to know God is there. Even if I don't understand Him there, I don't know how He is there, why He is there. Okay, you have to, you know what it means to jump over? You have to jump over all the knowledge you have. You have to be higher than all the things you know. If the highest thing is what you know, then you don't know anything. But if you're above all the things you know, you jump over everything. Okay, now listen. Now we come to the most important thing, and I want you, mamish, now to listen. But then he says, there's a very holy tzaddik, Moshe Rabbeinu, the real holy man in the world, and he is the one who knows God in this empty space. Listen to this. This is just. And now you have to know one thing. He says, the empty space has no words, because God created the world with words. What does it mean? There's empty space before the words. It means it's on the level of silence, right? There are no words for that. But Moshe Rabbeinu knows the secret of silence. But then he says something very beautiful. When you speak only with letters, right? And how do you make letters? If you put one letter on top of the other, they stop being letters. There has to be empty space between the letters, right? So the holiness is that if you are like Moshe Rabbeinu, God created the world with words, that means with letters. And God couldn't utter words unless there's empty space between the letters. So if you really know that God created the world like Moshe Rabbeinu, then not only you know the letters, you know the empty space between the letters. And therefore Moshe was stammering, because Moshe really, basically he was not on the level of talking. His holiness was not in talking. His holiness was because he knew the secret of silence. Because what is the whole thing of Moshe Rabbeinu? Moshe Rabbeinu is going down to the empty space and lifting up the world out of the confusion of the emptiness. Wait. Then he says something very beautiful. All the fighting in the world, everything what's going on, what's fighting, there's some empty space between us, right? This is very, very deep. Fighting in the world comes from that level of the empty space. Something very beautiful. It says, what happens when we fight with each other? We pull away from each other, right? Suddenly there's empty space between us, right? Some emptiness between us. That means, where does the whole thing of fighting come from? From that secret of the empty space. Then it says one thing, there's the holy saying. I'm just making it a little bit short tonight because we have to, that's to sink in. It says, Kol Yom Gedalti Ben Chachomim. My whole life I grew up between the sages, between the holy people. What do they say between? It says, I grew up from that which is between them, from the empty space between them. It means in the deepest depths, what are you growing from? Not from the words you hear, from the in-between, from the empty between. But he says, I found out that the greatest thing is silence, because first you realize that there's emptiness between. And then suddenly you realize, because there are no words for it, no letters. And suddenly you realize that this emptiness is not empty. Emptiness is the deepest silence there is. Can't say anything. You know, friends, there's two kinds of silence. There's a silence, they have nothing to say. And some of the silence have so much to say, it's impossible to say. That means there it's so strong, there's no words for it. This is the holiness of silence. No words. Now listen to this very, very deep. Imagine if people love each other so much, when they meet, they don't say anything. Right? And then they talk. The truth is, the moment they begin to talk, they're not that close anymore. Right? Because the moment they talk, as already has to be empty space between the letters. Right? The moment I talk and you talk, there has to be emptiness between us. But if there's complete silence, but the thing is like this: if I live in the world of letters, then it looks to me that people who are silent, they're not together. Imagine I walk around in the world and I see two people sat next to each other for 10 hours and didn't say one word. I say, wow, you know, they aren't together, brother, you know. But if I would know the secret like Moshe Rabbeinu, I would know, Gewalt. I mean, they're so close, there's no empty space between them, they can't even utter words, right? Because in order to utter words, you must have empty space. Ah, man, sie Sayyid. Now listen, one more thing, kids, it's very, very deep. What's the difference between God, knowing God with truth, knowing God with the letters, with belief? Remember learning a little bit about tzimtzum yesterday. Listen to this. If I believe in, if I know the truth, that means I have letters, right? I know the truth has words. The truth has words. Believing has no words. Much deeper than words. I don't know. I know, right? It has no words. So therefore the empty space can only be with believing. Now, it's not the truth, it's just believing. Because the empty space is basically such a deep space that there can't be any empty space, right? Listen to this in the deepest depths. I want you to listen to think of it. You know, we always think empty space means it's empty. No, empty space empty. If there's such a space that there can be anything in between, it's already not so deep anymore. That means there is really empty space in between. But then if there is such a deep space where there cannot be anything in between, so deep, then I cannot understand it with words. If I'm on the word level, then I say I can't, because I cannot utter words then. But if I'm on the level of faith, no words, but Moshe, no. Okay, kids, we gotta have Shiva